I sound so good when other people are talking about me. I hate when people talk about me, but it sounds so good. Well, good evening, all. Thank you for inviting me and welcoming me to impart some words of guidance and encouragement for you. So I just want to get a quick idea of who we have here. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, and when it does apply to you, please raise your hand. So can I have a show of couples who are dating? Nobody's dating. Okay, everybody's married here. All right. A show of hands for those who have been married for 0 to 5 years. 0 to 5 years. Okay. So a good amount of people married 0 to 5 years. What about 6 to 10 years? A show of hands for those who have been married for 6 to 10 years. Okay. These two are 5 years and 6 years. So we're going to take a vote. We're going to take a vote. Okay, what about 11 to 15 years? Any couples married 11 to 15 years? Okay, and what about 16 and up? 16 years and up, okay. So I just want everyone to give themselves a round of applause. Right? Because marriage, though it is a beautiful thing, it definitely is not for the faint of heart. But anything that is valuable and beneficial requires work to get us there. Amen? So we're going to take a little trip down history, right? If we look at the history of marriage, the marriage that we have today has morphed and evolved from its original intention. If we look at marriage at its origin, the intention was simply for procreation. Women were pledged to men to produce offspring. If for one reason or another, woman was not able to produce, the man would send her back home and he would pledge himself to another woman. As time went on, marriage evolved, and it became mainly beneficial to men. It then became about property. Right, women gave dowries, and it became about gaining property. And time went on some more. Now, as we talk about, now I know we're talking about tending gardens, and we're gonna get there. But as time went on and marriage evolved, women became more empowered, affording equal access to jobs, education, equal rights. And marriage became less about property and namesake and more about love and choice. This is the generation where we are today. People no longer get married because they need to. They get married because they want to. And there's a huge difference between needing to do something and wanting to do something. To live, I need to eat healthy and drink water at its basic form. That's a need. Now, the burger that I want and the soda on the side, I don't need that to live, but that's a want. I'm not gonna die if I don't have it. But the choice of wanting to get married, wanting to find a life partner, ensures that your choice will make you happy. And, when we enter into something that we want, we go into these things with a happy heart. How do we keep our hearts happy for each other? This is where the real work comes in. In the beginning of courtship, it's mostly wonderful. You're getting to know each other, your partner excites you, you get butterflies, y'all could talk all day and all night on the phone, go out for endless hours and have a great time. But when all those conversations feel like they've been had, and when the newlywed phase is over, right, the first 3 to 4 months of relationships or that first 6 months of marriage, that's often when the quarrels and the squabbles begin. It may sound cliche, but this is the honest truth. Communication is the foundation of all successful relationships. If you are not continuing to communicate with your partner, the relationship will surely die. Sometimes because we are so busy staring into each other's eyes, we forget to ask all the important questions, which are the foundations of successful relationships. Depending on when in your life you've encountered each other, you and your partner have lived a whole life separate, right? You have grown up with your own friends, with your own families, and then later on in life you'll counter each other. But as you have lived your life, you have received your communication style, your argument style, your parenting style, your financial style from your families of origin, from the relationships that you've had, and from things that you see around you. Television, movies that glorify how relationships should be. When we're not talking about the important things, because we're just so busy staring into each other's eyes because we love each other so much, when we're not trying to mesh these two lives together, whether you're a spender and he likes to save, right? Whether you believe in corporal punishment, but your partner doesn't believe in, or your partner believes in gentle parenting. Whether you grew up watching your parents maybe scream as argument styles, but the other party, they're not used to that. Their parents sat and talked. Or whether you were raised in a single parent household or without your parents and never saw the example of a healthy relationship. All of these things affect how we come together. And if we're not talking about these things, if we're not communicating those things to our partners, then we are setting ourselves up for disaster. Now, I saw we had a good amount of newer couples. I want to encourage you, as you're tending to your partner's gardens, it is very important that you're also tending to your own garden. What do I mean by that? As we grow, we're becoming different versions of ourselves. If you're the same person that you were 5 years ago today, there's a problem, right? If the same choices you make at 15, you make at 25, that means that you're not growing as an individual. But as you grow, the tricky thing in relationships is you're not only growing separately, but you should also be growing together. If you're not communicating the way that you're changing to your partner, then your partner will no longer know who you are. Let me give you an example. And this is, a really light example. Let's say in the beginning of your relationship, your partner knows you like Almond Joys. It's a candy bar, coconut, almonds wrapped in chocolate, one of my favorites. I love Almond Joys. So my partner knows I love Almond Joy. Over time, for whatever reason, maybe because I've been eating it since I was 5, and now, I'm in my whatever age I am. We're not gonna talk about that. I lost my affinity for Almond Joy. I don't like them no more. But I never told my partner, I don't really like this anymore. He goes to a gas station to fill up for gas, goes inside to pay for the gas, sees the Almond Joy. He knows that I love Almond Joy, so he picks me up Almond Joys. Comes home so excited because he was thinking of me. That's things that we like our partner to do. Babe, hey, I got your Almond Joy. I was thinking of you. And I'm just like, I don't like Almond Joys no more. I just crushed his whole spirit, right? Because he was thinking about me. But because I never communicated the way that I was changing inside, he never knew that this thing about me changed. Now, again, I understand that that is a really light example of how lack of communication can dampen a relationship. Number one, it could cause your partner to never present themselves in that way to you again, right? This thoughtful gesture, now that he hit the wall, he's not gonna do it again. Well, I came and gave you the Almond Joy, you didn't like it, so I'm not gonna do it again, right? You can also just pretend, oh, thank you so much, I love it, honey. But now you got a stack of Almond Joys building, right, that you don't know what to do with. But instead, We should just communicate these things, right? Honey, I don't like almond joys. Kit Kats are my new favorite. Oh, really? Okay. Simple conversation, right? It's a little thing that if we miss communicating to our partners could really have a domino effect. And it can sound very extreme, but it's one little thing that can cause a ripple effect. Even for our couples who've been married 10 plus years, 15 and up, the goal for our lives should always be to become better versions of ourselves. As we become better versions of ourselves, things about us will always change. If we're not communicating these individual growths, these new realizations, then we will no longer understand the people that we are living with. One of the most common years they say for couples to get divorced. I believe that we all understand that the statistics for divorce are very high, unfortunately, right? 50% divorce rate for first marriages, 65% for second marriages. Luck is not on our side, but God is. But there's two most common years for couples to get divorced. Within the first 2 years, within the 5th and 7th year, but the third most common that people don't often think about is after children leave the home. Why is that? One of the reasons why couples who have been married for 15, 20 plus years end up divorcing after their children leave the home is because they're not having the conversations. Life happens. There are bills, there are finances, there's COVID, there's wars, there's all of these things happening, right? We're raising children. That's the only thing that we're talking about. Hey, did you pay the gas bill? Did you pay the mortgage? Hey, this one has soccer. Those are the only conversations happening. So you're no longer connecting with each other. Just as it's important to put your doctor's appointments on a schedule, on a calendar, your children's appointments, your work schedule, it's as equally important to put a date night on the calendar. I understand that sometimes it feels like there's no time, but when you have no time for each other, you forget each other. Now imagine you're raising a child for 18 years. That's 18 years of not catching up with who you're becoming. Because remember, we're constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly becoming different versions of yourself. Year 1 of marriage and year 18 of marriage, you're gonna be a totally different person. But if you never took the time to communicate these changes to your spouse, what your views are, your political view may have changed, right? Your taste in food may have changed. Maybe you've gone through while this is happening, you went to school, you graduated, you learned so many new things, you switched jobs, but the conversation at home was never happening. I'm not paying for it. After 18 years, you no longer know the person in your own home. It is crucial to schedule time without the children, without taking care of somebody else, right? That is just, even if it's just sitting on the couch by yourselves, having conversation. Those conversations will ensure that your marriage continues to survive. Another way for couples to attend to each other's garden is respect each other. I know when I say it seems so obvious, like of course I respect my partner, right? But when we talk about respect, we are also talking about respecting your partner's input, respecting their decision-making abilities, respecting that partners have rights to their individual thoughts. Partners don't want to feel devalued in their marriages, and it's very important to honor our partner's contributions to the marriage. Today, when we hear submission, we often think of it as a curse word. The reason for it is submission has been so abused in relationships, specifically marriages, it's so much easier to submit to a loving partner. There's a saying that you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Think of it as this. If you want a partner to follow your lead, you have to prove to your partner that you are worthy of following. What does that mean? If you're not good with money, demanding that your partner hand over all financial responsibilities to you makes no sense. That does not make a good leader. In the end, it's only going to result in financial ruin. And that is not the order that God had in mind. God is a God of order, and turning your household upside down for the sake of a gender is truly not in his order. But when you're taking the time to talk to your partner and deem what is best in your marriage as a unit and not just for your individual ego, then things will run a lot more smoothly. Think about your workspace. It's a proven fact that employers that make their employees feel valued have longer employee retention. You want to stay at a job that you feel cares about what you have to say, how you're feeling, whether you're happy or unhappy, care about your thoughts. So if let's say there's a problem at work and you figure out the solution, you go to your employer and you say, hey, I see that there's this problem. I was thinking X, Y, and Z. And they say, you know what, that's a really good idea. We're going to implement that change tomorrow. What happens? You walk away feeling like, wow, they heard me. I did something good for this company. It's the same thing as your marriage. It's important that we value the contributions that our spouses make, right? Hey, honey, I don't think this is a good financial decision. Sitting down and talking about it instead of, no, I am the head of this household and whatever I say goes, right? If you're not a good financial person, it's wiser to admit that and do what's best for your marriage. The Bible does tell us that the two become one. But when the two becomes one, that doesn't mean that one person is in charge of everyone's life. That means the two combined sit and make decisions together for the best of their marriage. When we talk about respect, we're also talking about our partner's respect to their bodies. We do belong to each other under the covenant of marriage, but we are still also individuals. No means no also in marriage. There is a thing as marital rape. I'm going to put it out there like that. It is important that we're communicating with our partners to understand and determine their needs. Lastly, tending to each other's gardens also means loving our partners in the way that make them feel loved the most. Because we have lived our lives in our own skin, we often assume what we like is going to be good for somebody else as well. It's going to all jump back to communication. If we're not communicating these things, neither of us are going to feel loved in our marriages. I am sure you've heard the term love language. It is very essential in successful relationships to love their partner. You love your partner in the language that they understand. It's like if I speak English and my husband speaks Mandarin, and he's trying to communicate to me and I'm trying to talk to him. We don't understand each other because we speak two different languages. In order for me to communicate to my spouse, I have to learn Mandarin, and he has to learn English. There are 5 main categories of love languages. We have acts of service, physical touch, gift giving, quality time, and words of affirmation. So for example, if your love language is gift giving, and your partner's love language is physical touch, that's 2 different languages. So my imaginary husband, He's trying to cuddle with me. He's trying to hug me. He's trying to hold my hand. That's his love. He's trying to tell me, hey, babe, I love you. I don't understand that. My love language is gift giving, right? I like you acknowledging my birthday, our anniversary, Valentine's Day. I don't care if it's a made-up holiday. It means something to me. If it means something to your partner, it needs to be important to you. So now, a year in, I'm done. I had it. You don't love me, I don't feel loved. He's confused. He's like, what do you mean? I cuddle with you, I sit on the couch and we snuggle, I hold your hand. He's showing me that he loves me, but I don't understand it. We're not speaking the same language. What needs to happen? He needs to acknowledge, this is how I feel loved. I feel loved when you celebrate my birthday. I feel loved when you make a big deal out of our anniversary, right? But he's not feeling love either. He's like, well, babe, you know what? I don't feel loved at all. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I always celebrate your birthday. I go all out on our anniversaries. I plan stuff for us too. But he's like, yeah, but when I go to hug you, you're always busy. You don't have time. I have to beg you to sit on the couch with me. He's not feeling loved either. So when you have this lack of communication, right? When there's this wall, this is a separating wall right here. When there's this wall up, right? When he's not understanding me and I'm not understanding him, that's only going to destroy the relationship. And so learning another language takes time and effort. But there is, your partner is going to notice that you're trying to learn, right? You may not get it right every single time, but it's the effort, right? It's the effort that keeps you going, saying, yes, I'm going to remain in this relationship because he's trying. I'm going to stay because she heard me, right? It makes you feel valued. It makes you feel heard. So it is very crucial that we understand what each other's languages are so we can communicate to them, so we can walk away from each other feeling loved and secured. Only with tending to your own garden do you figure out what your language is. If you don't know yourself, you can't tell somebody what you like. It is very important that we continue to not only work on our marriages, but also work on ourselves. Again, we are constantly and should be evolving and changing into different, better versions of ourselves. That should be our goal. As we do that, we're going to discover things about ourselves, right? It's going to be important to, number one, take note of what we discover, and two, communicate those things we discover to our partners. In the beginning, I stated it was such a cliche statement that communication is the foundation of any successful relationship. But I think as we've seen here, it is very true. Remember, though you are a unit, you are still an individual who is growing and shaping. Continue to communicate the better version of yourself to your partner, and in turn, you will tend to each other's gardens, setting the work for a beautiful harvest. Thank you.
I'm going to put our speaker on the spot. Do you guys have any questions? I know she's willing to sit down. Do you want us to grab your chair? We'll grab your chair. Okay. You can sit right here. Make yourself comfortable. Okay, she can stand. So I'm going to give her the mic, and I'm going to walk around if you guys have any questions. All right. She had her hands He had his hand up first. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much for the teachings. My question will be, when you are communicating what you need or what you want or what you become while you was in the process of growing or making yourself like better, the better version. What if your demand becomes overwhelming to your partner? What will you do?
You know that that's a very good question. I was going to put that in here, but I was like, it's going to be too long. That often is something that happens. As we change, our partner may not appreciate this new version of ourselves that we've discovered. I would suggest, number one, gradual communication about these things, so it's not just 10 things at one time. I discovered I'm like this, I need this to change, this, right? That is going to be very overwhelming, right? Starting with maybe 2 or 3 things, and having constant communication about it. Like, hey, I discovered that. So I say this cautiously, understanding where I am, but I'm going to say it because it's something that I've experienced. One of the biggest things that I've found that couples can experience is faith changes. Certain experiences make you question your faith. And that can be very difficult for a partner. I went through a difficult situation, and I questioned everything I knew about my relationship with God. I wasn't married then, but I lived with my parents. My father's an evangelist. My mother is my mother. She's a praying woman. And that was very difficult for them, but they continued to pray me through it. We continued to have conversations about why this situation shook the core of my faith so much. I'm thankful that I had them there to, number one, not judge me about how I was feeling, understanding that this was a part of my process, but 2, also praying my way through it. If I didn't find my way back to God, that would just be who I was, and they would have to adjust to me. I'm thankful that that was not the outcome, right? But I have counseled couples where there have been those sorts of changes, and it is very difficult for the one whose faith is still grounded to handle the shakiness. But I will say, if God gives us the room for shakiness, then we have to give our partners room for shakiness as well, in whatever the situation is. So those things can be very difficult, but not impossible to overcome. Again, constant communication, kind, gentle communication, understanding that we have been dealing with this for, I don't know, a month, 3 months, 5 months, trying to figure out what we're feeling, what we're changing. I used to like this, now I don't like this. When we give it to our partners, it's their first time hearing it. We've had it for a long time, so we have to give them the same patience that we gave ourselves. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry for asking too many questions.
No, it's fine. It's okay.
So, in the same process of showing yourself like who you became, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going like progressively, like slowly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what if the situation remained like the same? You're not getting like the same feedback from your partner. What would you do, or what would you advise somebody? Or maybe let me ask this question in another way. So, personally, I don't believe like in the going in the second marriage or third marriage. I believe in one marriage, right? But what if you make your demands and then your partner comes to the level where she'll be like, no, this is too much. I'm not taking any of your demands. What would you do?
So your beliefs are your beliefs, and you have the right to believe them. We can't force anyone else to believe what we believe. If your demands become too much for your partner, I would, number one, recommend couples counseling. As a therapist, I would be a hypocrite if I did not say I recommend couples counseling. To see if we can find a middle ground. A middle ground between where you are and where your partner is. Don't throw anything up here, but I'm going to say it. I do not believe that if individuals are miserable in their situations that they have to stay in them forever. I don't believe that that's just the God that I serve, who wants me to be unhappy forever. I believe that we need to do everything that we can. We need to pray through it together. We need to try counseling. We need to try marital counseling with a professional, marital counseling with our pastors. And if we still can't receive a resolution, then we need to figure things out to make each individual happy. Okay, I have another question. My partner stays in the living room till late, then I sleep off, then he comes for sex, and I find it unfair. Why wait for me to sleep? How can I handle that? I would suggest, oftentimes when we communicate something, we talk about the emotion and not why we feel that way. Right? It makes me angry that you sleep in the living room. Like, it's not fair. Instead of having the conversation about, hey, when you do this, it makes me feel lonely, it makes me feel used, it makes me feel etc. Right? What is the reason for the emotion and the feeling? Hopefully, if you're able to communicate these things to your partner in a way that is expressing why, right? Not that it just makes you upset, but why does it make you upset? The process, the emotional process that you're going through internally, I'm hoping that your partner can understand that and say, okay, I didn't realize it was having this effect on you, right? Because I can definitely understand this. Life is busy, right? When I'm asleep, after the long day, if you got kids, if you don't have kids, the days are long here. You know, there's work, we work hard, and then there's cooking and cleaning, and when I'm asleep, unless I don't got work tomorrow, nothing to do tomorrow, don't wake me up. I'm tired, right? Especially if you're just watching TV. Come join, but that can be conversation, right? Hey, if you see me laying down and if you want to be intimate, if you want to have sex, if you see me going upstairs, come upstairs with me, right? One of the other things is I notice that there is a lack of, what is the word I'm looking for? Partners don't do the signals that let you know that they're interested during the day, or like when you get home, right? When you walk by me, touch my butt, right? When you walk by me, kiss my neck. Then I have an idea. Oh, he gonna want some tonight. Okay. Now I know that you're expecting something. You can't just ignore me all day and then get into bed and be like, why are you sleeping? Wake up. No, you didn't tell me nothing. You didn't show me. You didn't touch me. You didn't even send me a dirty text message, right? There's so many things that you can do to say, babe, when we get in that bed, you know what time it is, right? And so even if we're doing these little things, right, we're dropping clues that when we get in that bed, you know what I want. We're dropping clues. If you don't drop no clues and you watch me go to sleep and then you come to bed 2 hours later to wake me up, I'm going to have an attitude, right? Especially if I have work in the morning and I'm tired. right? But we need to, like, babe, I am so tired, I'm going to bed. If I tell you I'm so tired and I'm going to bed, please let me sleep in peace. Especially if you didn't drop no clues. There was no butt rubbing, no neck kissing, no nothing. Let me sleep. So what I'm saying is, not only, again, communicating the emotion, communicating why this causes the emotion. I hope that answered your question. Okay, next question. What is the best way to tell your partner how you want to be loved despite you have told them over and over again, and how should they approach it better? Over and over again and fails, and how should they approach it better? I'm going to put the portion of the last answer, telling them how it makes you feel, not just the emotion, right? When you're not doing this, it makes me feel unloved, unwanted, unneeded, right? Whatever it is. Giving specific examples. Our partners are not mind readers. As we date, we as we date, we gain the mind frame. Well, you should already know. You should just know. No, they can't just know. Because again, you have been in your own body for all of these years. Your partner cannot just download all of the information. We don't have that technology yet. I hope never, because that's a little scary. But we don't have that technology to say, here, I'm going to plug me in, so now all the information goes into you, and now I don't have to ever say anything. We have to be really specific, right? Honey, I need affection. When I don't have affection, it makes me feel unloved. I need you to hug me at least twice a day. Right? And not just hug me, I need you to hold me, right? And make me feel like you are happy that I'm in your arms, right? Not just, we have to be He's trying to hug you, okay? He's trying to hug you. We have to become very specific with our need. We cannot be embarrassed to share anything with our partner. If this is the person you plan on doing life with, then you have to become comfortable enough to tell it all, right? Even like, honey, when we're having sex, I don't like when you touch me like this. Who wants to have bad sex for the rest of their life? Listen, men, there's a myth that women do not enjoy sex. We enjoy sex, okay? Just like you enjoy sex, right? Sex was made to be enjoyed. It was made to be enjoyed. So we have to understand how our partner wants their bodies touched, men and women. It is okay for sex to be enjoyable for both parties. Right, men, if you don't like the way she does it, honey, you grab it too hard. I don't like when you do it like that, right? You have to be, because if you're not honest, then you're going to spend the rest of your life, ow. Who wants to spend the rest of their life in pain? Right? It's only through open and honest communication. Your spouse should be your safe space. And if your spouse is not your safe space, I encourage you to develop communication that makes your spouse your safe space, right? All the like, honey, I was at a meeting at work and I farted. I was so embarrassed, right? You should be able to tell your spouse that. All of the embarrassing things, all the things that you think, things that we were trained not to say, it's really not true. I definitely understand the mind trick that society does on us. We watch these movies and, all of a sudden they're just happily ever after and they just know each other so well. That is not true. It does not happen that way. There has to be talking. There has to be communication. There has to be honesty, right? Only through pure honesty, even about some of our past stuff. Sometimes we think when we experience things in the past, we leave them there. But it affects our current relationships. Maybe it's if your spouse touches you in a certain way, it reminds you of something else and you don't like that. Maybe it's a cologne or perfume that triggers you into someone else and you don't like that. It's you have to have the honest conversations with your spouse that say like, you know, honey, this perfume, you know, someone that I hated, you know, or, you know, this guy who did me so wrong used to wear, and I don't want that trigger, right? And so it's important to have those really deep, honest conversations that is going to ensure that that foundational groundwork is set. Okay, any more questions? Yes.
Thank you for the whole presentation. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
just have one question about people having hope that when everyone goes into marriage, it's somehow going to work, you're going to fix out things and move on forward. But we have this aspect of our past life coming to play in how we live our present life, even how we handle grief or how we handle forgiveness, plus expectation, because demand, expectations, and not seeing how all that baggage comes to play into this. And people realize that I'm trying to do this, but this is not coming, or you do this, but how it's perceived, it's not what you expected, you know, with all this breaking. How would you advise that people, even with seemingly sound relationships, might help, you know, solve things that are going to help them even better?
So one thing I truly believe is that we are partnered with our people for a reason. And sometimes they may see things in us that are unhealthy, right? The way that, like you said, we handle grief or arguments, right? One of the examples I gave is if you were raised in a certain environment where people just yelled and screamed all the time, that's what you're going to do. It's not because, not even necessarily because you want to, that's just what you were taught was normal. And when you're taught that's normal, it takes you experiencing something different or someone saying like, hey, I don't want to yell, right? Let's find a different way. How about let's take 5-10 minutes and calm down, and then let's start talking again, right? It's about communicating to your partner that, number one, this is my style of grief, right? I shut down. I don't talk to anybody, I don't eat, I just don't do anything. That's not necessarily the healthiest, because when you shut down, you're also shutting your partner out, right? And so now you have two people who are living together without someone to turn to, right? And so it's really important to recognize that not everything we learned is healthy, and that we have to unlearn some of those things. Therapy is one of the best tools, I'm telling you. Therapy is good. Therapy can help you unlearn some of those traits that you learned that may not be the most beneficial to you. Because let's say, I'm just gonna stick on the grief, let's say we're just shutting down. We're not really processing it. We're not going through the emotions. We're just kind of trying to bury it until it's gone. But then when something triggers us to remember that grief, we shut down all over again. So it's just this cycle of unhealthy coping skills that just never stop. So, again, I truly believe that we're paired with our people for a reason. God knows what. I tell everyone I would never have picked my partner if it was my choice. Never. We are so opposite. But he is everything I didn't know that I needed. Everything that I didn't know that I needed, he is that. And God did his thing. He really did. And so he sees things like he's the one who told me that I have an attitude when I'm hungry. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that about myself. And one day we were just riding, and I was cranky. He was like, babe, did you eat today? I was like, no. Why you ask if I ate? He's like, you get angry when you're hungry. I was like, no, I don't. And I was like, oh, maybe I do get an attitude when I'm hungry, right? He's also, we sometimes think that we're like super whatever in whatever field that we're in, right? We think we're super Christians, we're the best prayers, and we're the best financial people, right? And even in some instances, this is before God works on me years ago. I thought I was the most Christian out of all. I'm like, I know God more. Me and God are friends. Like, you don't even know him like I know him. And that man had to pray me out of some things, right? God had to show me you're with him for a reason. And you have to open your eyes and step back and see the things that I brought him to bring out of you, right? Because that was a nasty spirit to have anyway. Like, I think I'm the best Christian. None of us are the best Christians, right? That's just a falsity. Mm-hmm. No, it's okay.
By the way, when you say therapy is the best option for people or couple that are going through, let's say, a lot of things. And when she started, she said that you are a therapist and you have all these CV. So the last question will be, how this type of marriage survive the people who have like depression and anxiety? How do you help that type of marriages? Maybe here there is that type of couple that is suffering from depression and anxiety, and how that marriage can survive.
So before they would even go to couples counseling, I would encourage the individual suffering with the depression and anxiety to get their own therapy individually, and their partner to get therapy to understand how to help support their partner. Because if you're doing couples counseling and there's no work on the partner who has the depression, then couples counseling is going to be unsuccessful because this depression is not being treated. Oftentimes we look at our medical health as more important than our mental health, but it really is just as equally important. If you are, I don't know, urinating a lot, getting lightheaded during certain times of the day when you eat certain foods, right? You're gonna go to a doctor, right? You're gonna say, hey, I have these symptoms, something's wrong. The doctor's gonna say, hey, sounds like you might be onset diabetes. Like, let's take care of this, right? You're not gonna have a problem with that. But oftentimes when it's our mental health, because number one, for Black and brown people, mental health has not been accessible. We have for so long had to just push down and keep going, right? But what pushing down and keep going causes, it causes us to, number one, not be in tune with our emotions, right? We don't know how to handle our emotions. When emotional things come up, we just push it down and keep going, right? Instead of just dealing with it, having the conversations with ourselves. What's happening? I'm sad every year around this time, right? Through processing, something happened. Somebody passed away, a house caught on fire. It's always going to be something. But if we're not dealing with the symptoms, right? And so since we're talking about depression, right, some of the symptoms are depression is lack of interest in the things that you used to do. You don't want to do them no more. You have no energy. You want to lay down and just sleep. Sometimes even if you're not sleeping, you just don't have the energy to get up. There's nothing the person can do to make themselves, because oftentimes there's a chemical imbalance that happens. And so if we're not dealing, number one, with the root cause, and sometimes number two, with it medically, right? Let's say you have diabetes and your pancreas is not producing insulin. Nothing you do is going to help your pancreas produce insulin. You can eat right, You can cut out all the sugars. You can exercise. Your pancreas is, if it stopped working, it's not going to start working. Medication will help it. Now, if you're not insulin dependent, sometimes you will take medication to get the levels normal, and then you can do the things, right? The healthy eating, the diet, the exercise that will help your numbers get back down to normal and get off the medication. Same with mental health, same with depression, same with anxiety, same with stress, same with all of these things. Sometimes medication may be necessary, it can be temporary, just to give you the boost to get you from here to here to do the things that then you would normally do to help you feel better. And sometimes that often includes going to therapy and getting to the root of some of these causes.
All right. How many of you learned something today? I learned a lot. All right.